And the revolutionary tradition could not be more different. The reforming tradition seeks to hold elites accountable through a re-examination of foundational principles and pursues a rebalancing and reintegration of society as one nation. The revolutionary tradition, on the other hand, uses unverified theories to mobilize one class against another in hopes of achieving a great reset through power. Now, friends, I think the greatness of Canada throughout our history has actually been that we have been the people who have rejected the revolutionary disposition in all its forms. Most of the world has by now been scarred by the pains of violent revolution and is worse for it. Some in our politics still admire revolutions, but we were a country made by those who rejected revolution. Indigenous people who struggled to preserve their identity and culture. French settlers who preserved their faith, history, and identity. Loyalists who sought a reconciliation between crown and country. Great patriots like John A. Macdonald and D'Arcy McGee, who sought reconciliation between different religious and ethnocultural elements of this great land. Ukrainians and other victims of Soviet terror who preserved their culture here while it was being pummeled in their country of origins. Iranians who fled a revolution to conserve their ancient and beautiful civilization. And of course, the list goes on and on. What has united us in the midst of our differences is a rejection of revolutionary extremism and our desire to create a shared political nationality. A political nationality that defends the rights of all people to conserve the wisdom of their ancestors, honoring both the heritage of this place and the heritage of their family. This is what has made Canada work, a shared political nationality that was essentially conservative and preservative while also being pluralistic. That was the reforming and anti-revolutionary tendency. This is Canada at its best. This is the Canada that our reforms must seek to restore. Now, as we think about how we can unify our country, reforming our institutions and bridging the divides that hold us back, it's clear to me that one of the most critical divides we face right now is the intergenerational one. Disraeli said in his own time, "Two nations, between whom there was no intercourse and no sympathy, who were as ignorant of each other's habits, thoughts, and feelings as if they were dwellers in different zones or inhabitants of different planets." Imagine again then, two nations of people. Look at the first nation. This nation faces a cost of living crisis that makes it harder and harder for them to pay for their basic necessities. In the face of this cost of living crisis, they are deeply concerned about preserving the value of the assets that they have and that they rely on for their financial future. Assets they have worked hard throughout a long life to maintain. They are worried about threats to their health and safety and the rise of authoritarianism, and the news channels they consume regularly reinforce these concerns and their association with various political figures. They also struggle in large numbers with a sense of loneliness and disconnection. Members of their family are often too busy for them. They feel disconnected from the rest of society and the next generation. A next generation who communicates in ways that are different, abrasive, and sometimes hard to understand. Often facing the risk of loneliness and disconnection, perhaps feeling underappreciated and undervalued, desperate to hold on to the things that they have and concerned about the future. This is the condition of one nation. Now imagine the condition of another nation of people. This is a nation of ninjas. Ninja stands for no jobs, no income, no assets. This second nation is more interconnected and engaged than ever. They have access to more ideas and channels of information than would have been thought imaginable only a few years ago. This leads them to a strong sense of their own knowledge and sometimes to high levels of anxiety. They are profoundly skeptical about established media channels and authority structures, especially following a pandemic that let them down so badly. The second nation struggles to get jobs because of a series of economic problems and also because of very high levels of immigration. They need jobs that are accessible and assets that are within reach in order to allow them to start building their lives. They are not so much trying to preserve what they have, rather they are aspiring to attain things that they had never thought, that they have never had, and that increasingly seem out of reach. Their structures of social interaction, their economic interests, their needs, and their communities are completely different from those of the previous nation described. And yet the fact that these two nations occupy the same piece of territory sets the stage for escalating social and political conflict. As I said earlier, the properly conservative response to these events is to pursue a reconciliation between these nations with the goal of being one nation united in solidarity and purpose. Now, this means jobs and homes must be accessible to young people, and older people must see a responsibility and an opportunity to pass opportunities, knowledge, and experience on to the next generation. To deepen an appreciation for the challenges that they face while learning from the experience of older people, young people should seek to establish relationships with older people in their communities, talking about political issues, building shared spaces of conversation, and informing each other about the challenges they face, and coming to each other's aid in ways that reflect the natural complementarity that exists between older and younger people. Now, fundamentally, although there are going to be some areas of divergent interests, it seems obvious that the challenges facing all age cohorts flow from deep-seated problems in our national economy. The purchasing power of older Canadians who rely on pensions is being eroded by inflationary policies that have caused a cost of living crisis. Seniors on fixed incomes are seeing less of their money in real terms because the government is spending more money than it has, which has the effect of reducing the value of the dollar they have saved up and they rely on. Government overspending and overregulation is also making our economy less productive and less competitive, which is hurting the assets of older people and is leading to fewer job opportunities for younger people. It is easy to see how, on the one hand, bad economic policy has created some points of conflict between different generational cohorts. But on the other hand, how bad economic policy has just made everything worse for everyone. Bad economic policy, out-of-control immigration, and the resulting cost of living, housing, and jobs crises that result from 10 years of bad policy are causing those with jobs and assets to hang on to them more desperately, and those without jobs and assets to become increasingly discouraged and frustrated. Sadly, these realities are leading to delayed family formation and likely making it more difficult for many young people to have the families that they hoped for. And this creates more problems of its own in turn. I wanted to share just briefly a bit about why intergenerational reconciliation is so important to me. My political involvement was deeply shaped by my maternal grandparents. We were very close to them growing up. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, and she wouldn't talk a lot about it, but from time to time we heard aspects of her experience, how members of her family were killed, the fear and pain that characterized her childhood. And it helped us understand why politics is so important. Now, my grandfather was an engineer who lived and worked in Alberta at the time of the National Energy Program under the last Trudeau. And he became active in politics as well, drawing from those experiences and the economic impacts of bad economic policy. And it was through talking to my grandparents, listening to them, being with them, that I was able to learn and shape my own thinking about the challenges that our country faces today. And I think also about my own family. I've got 6 children. And when I've more recently posted about having additional children, there's always someone who posts in response, "Must be nice. I wish I could have more kids." People who are delaying family formation or who are not able to have the families that they want to have because of the increasingly brutal economic pressures facing young families who struggle to afford homes, who struggle to find jobs. And this is why we need greater intergenerational reconciliation, and we need to face the dire economic challenges confronting this country. What we need now is to try to rebuild the practical bonds that should exist between different nations. And as I've talked about in particular today, between older and younger people, to rebuild shared conversations about the issues facing this country. We need to unite Canada around a positive agenda to get government out of the way, to more effectively manage spending and immigration, to build more homes, to unleash the energy sector, as Michael talked about, and so much more. So that is the task in front of us as members of Parliament, and that is the task in front of all of you as citizens of this great nation in the months and years ahead. And I'm proud to say that our Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is, in my view, very much in the mold of the great reforming Conservatives of history, like Disraeli and Diefenbaker, a leader willing to challenge and reform the status quo in order to build beautiful things that last. Thank you again for this opportunity. I wish you well in these conversations as you reflect on what you need to do to build one nation united across generational and other divides, working together to advance the common good. Thank you very much, and God bless.